Test, test, test. Audio's live. What's up, everybody? We're going to be jumping on here in a quick sec. Quick sec, quick sec.
Can you talk about the fact that we're sharing information?
If you want to, yeah. Yeah, yeah. What's up, Zigzag? Gallacher has Deemer. Did I say that right? Who else is in here? Where are you guys from? We're coming to you live from New York City, Brooklyn, New York. I do hope you can hear me. We got Jason Gallacher about to join us here in a couple minutes. So it's uncomfortable now because this interview is always around my desk. So if you could just scoot all the way over to as far onto this thing as possible. All right, all right. We are starting in 6 minutes. Sweden in the house.
All right.
You can speak too if you want.
Yeah.
But,
Hello, hello.
But we're not starting yet.
What's up, everybody?
They can't see our face yet.
All right.
Sun rays from the Bronx. What's up? It's too good of a day to be inside right now. It's so nice out here in New York.
It is.
I'm just plugging this Tark hat you just you just made, and I'm actually wearing it right now.
Love that hat.
I'm
We
just gonna
got
wait.
more Tart
Yeah.
goodies coming soon.
Gonna wait a little bit until it's 12 exactly. But you want to look over these
Yeah, cool.
questions? Got a couple
Alright.
questions for Jason. I'm not gonna get into yet, but just a quick little roundup for those of you who are here. Yeah, that's a little awkward. And
Sorry.
it's set up for close talking. So, from Marcy, Brooklyn, New York, you're really close, man. The real man. We're really close to you. That's kind of scary.
Check.
So yeah, we got some. We got some questions. A quick little outline. One. I thought it would be cool for Jason to explain the history of Affinity. He's also a pretty established track racer, and some of you race, some of you don't. A lot of people just ride their bikes on the streets, but it's really cool to hear that point of view and that take on riding track bikes, because that stuff's also just as fun as riding in streets and roads and gravel, and it's just another discipline. So he's got plenty of experience in that, and then also want to talk about some of his old New York cycling scene before I moved here. He's been here a while, so he was here back when there were bike meetups under the BQE bridge, and he was here when there was a Hollywood film that was shot here in New York, and he was part of that as well. So we're going to get into that in just a few minutes. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Hello, hello, hello.
Check, check.
Everyone in there? All right, I'm going to do a little exposure change on the camera before we start this. We're starting right on time today. It's going to be kind of funny today with this because the sun and the clouds today are kind of like...
Yeah, it's actually really nice out in New York today. That's your sweet new camera, right?
Yeah.
6K. I was going to say 4K, but that's 6K.
Yeah. Using a 6K camera to stream 1080p, it's fine.
With a big stack of hotline stickers next to it, getting ready to ship. Plugging you.
The plug. I swear those stickers are going. They're going to send out. All right. What's up? What's up? All right, we're going live. Here we are. Hello. I'm Terry Barentsen. If you're new here, I make YouTube videos about cycling. Lately, I've been trying to interview people. This is one of those interviews. This is Jason Gallacher. He is the owner of Affinity Cycles. He's also a highly established track racer. And why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah.
That's my little half-assed introduction.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, my name's Jason Gallacher. I own, operate Affinity Cycles. We're here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a bike racer, hack bike racer, semi-pro, masters racer, local bike racer, bicycle enthusiast. You know, I do bikes.
Right on, right on. So those of you who don't know Affinity Cycles, they're a bike company and manufacturing cycling company, but you guys used to be a bike shop, right? Back in the day.
Yeah, so Affinity started in 2007 in Williamsburg, New York, in Brooklyn. And yeah, we sort of started as a bike shop and a bicycle brand. We opened as a bike shop with our low pro track frame set, and things just kind of went from there.
Low pro, that's interesting. That's a low pro bike.
Yeah, Terry's riding a low pro now. Got the low pro.
The low pro was the first bike. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
The same geometry, everything, or has
yeah. A lot of people ask that. The low pro has not changed at all really since. Actually, no. The very first ones had a 26.0 seat post. But all other ones have had 27.2, and we've changed the fork like a few years ago. But other than that, the geometry stayed the same. Everything's pretty much the same.
Sweet. So you went from bike shop to no longer being a bike shop, and how did that transition go? Like what influenced that? What was going on in the industry to make that change? Or
it was a bit of a tough choice. I struggled with it for a little while. I teetered on, still trying to keep the shop open and also do the brand. The brand really began to take off. Everything was sort of grassroots back then. Not to say it was that long ago, but initially we didn't do online sales. We didn't even have a website in the beginning. I mean, that just kind of was a bit of a different time. And then we started having dealers. And then distributors, and things really began to take off. So the operation was transitioning from just the bike shop to the bicycle brand, and then eventually I made the choice just to do the bicycle brand. The bike shop was great, and it always was a successful business, but I knew that my future was in Affinity, and that that was sort of the direction I should be heading.
Nice, and the sun's back. Look at that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful in the city today.
Sorry about this. We're going to have to make a few adjustments now and again. Just so we don't blow things up behind our heads with the sun pouring in.
Tiny desk interview.
Exactly. Oh, look at this. And our light got kicked around. All right. Amateur hour. Yeah, so that was way before I was here, and I'm going to jump around a little bit.
Sure.
I was, riding fixed gear bikes and track bikes, and I was kind of at that time when all that was happening. I actually came to New York on a trip, brought my bike, and I saw Affinity, the shop, on Grand because I was staying at a girl's house across. Well, actually, my friends were staying at a girl's house across the street. So I was like, oh, there's Affinity. I've heard about that place because of John Prawley's website back in the day before the Radivis was called Prawley is Not Probably, and he was documenting this. This like fixed gear, before it was called fixed gear freestyle, kind of like group meetup under the BQE called Peel Sessions. Tell us a little bit about Peel Sessions from your point of view, because I was just watching from like the web. The web, yeah. People went to websites back then.
No, it was. I think overall the what was happening in New York at the time, the scene was huge. And Peel Sessions was kind of like a celebration of that. John Prawley sort of started these, group, catch-ups under the BQE, a few blocks from our shop. And so, everyone pretty much would go and hang out. And, fixed gear freestyle was, just starting out. And, we were even doing like foot down competitions and skids. And, it was really just kind of like a big hang. And it was a really good time in the scene. And that's also, what made, the shop kind of the pulse of what was happening, and it was just a really good time to hang around. And a lot of people, even if some bike messengers, some racers, and people who were just kind of like into track bikes, would get together and hang out. It was just kind of like one big group at the time.
It was crazy. I wish I should have pulled up some videos for you guys. There was a, it's also like a DIY skate, like a bunch of ledges and quarter pipes that are under the structure, and the BQE is like a Brooklyn Queens Expressway. It's like a highway, so it's elevated. So there's all these structures holding up the elevated highway. So they built like DIY quarter pipes and all kinds of like ledges. And at one time, I wasn't here for this. This is what I saw on the internet. There was a huge quarter pipe that went against the wall, and it was massive.
That was wood.
Yeah, and it was made of wood, and it was kind of like what solidified the idea about New York, just like you can do whatever the fuck you want to do kind of thing.
Yeah.
At that time anyways, it felt that way to me, and I was like, man, it looks like they're having a blast. Anyways, I was just super envious seeing some of that stuff, because I was in San Francisco, like, what's going on?
A lot of the scene, it didn't really, I don't want to say it started in New York, but I think the pulse really generated from New York at the time. And some of the early track bike, the scene kind of started where a bunch of messengers went over to Japan and began, went to a couple of events, and then brought back a bunch of Karen bikes. And, that group kind of, ballooned and became bigger. And, then the track bike got, bigger and bigger. And, it was a thing people raced, and a thing people messengered on, and a thing people, rode on the streets. And then people started doing tricks and wheelies, and it just kind of evolved and evolved and evolved. And that kind of explosion began to sort of happen. Back then alley cats it was kind of like weird to do alley cats if you were on a bike messenger. And people then who weren't bike messengers started doing pretty good in alley cats, and now it's totally socially acceptable to do an alley cat, like no matter who you are, and Peel Sessions kind of helped bridge the gap, and John Prawley helped bridge the gap, and a bunch of people, a bunch of influencers. But, overall it was a much bigger kind of like social gathering at the time. And I think now that's really kind of happening all over the world. And now there's different things that have happened that have kind of like helped, carry on track bikes or fixies now. And, that whole thing that is.
There was a lot of, there still are a lot of heavy hitters in New York, but at that time it was like, a lot of people who I saw in the scene were doing good things. They're still kind of up to doing good things and still growing things, which is cool. Like during that time, I'm talking about the movie now. There was a film that came here and that you were involved in. There was like some friends, some people who were stunt doubles that are still doing things now. Like, can you tell us a little bit about the film and how it happened and what it is, how it happened, how you got involved?
Premium Rush. So, a lot of things, again, surrounding the scene things were happening, and, they decided to make a bike messenger movie called Premium Rush. And, fortunately, the prop masters and the directors of Premium Rush were, wanted to try to keep it as core to the scene as they could. And so they started doing some research, and, all avenues, or many avenues, started pointing my way. They started, they called us and initially started asking us some rough questions on how we might be able to help. And then, a few meetings later, we pitched, having Affinity as the main character's bike. I remember at the time, Brooklyn Machine Works, I think, was up for it. Geek House did a bike, I think, as well. I think the final may have been a Geek House, a Brooklyn Machine Works, and an Affinity. And I just kind of really hit it off with the prop master and the director. And we, at the time, they had some ideas on what they were looking for, and they really loved Stone Tone's bike. He was totally, give props to Stone Tone, that the Premium Rush bike was Stone Tone's bike. I mean, we were going to use the Low Pro initially, and so they wanted a bike that looked just like Tone's bike, and because Tone was kind of like a heavy hitter in the scene, and was doing lots of things and promoting races, and he was like one of the new fresh faces in the scene, and he had been around a while and was doing good things, and so we made a bike that looked like Tone's bike. And then they decided they wanted to use the Metropolitan. They thought because of the slope that all they were going to see was the top of the character's head. And I tried to explain to them that wouldn't be the case, but they wanted the Metropolitan, and that was sort of one thing led to the other, and we got really involved in the movie.
That's great. Yeah. So you guys got involved. I know Tom was a stunt double. Putting Tom on the spot here, or shouting him out.
Tom LaMarche.
Tom LaMarche. He was also relevant in the online videos I was seeing at Pill Sessions, and then I find out later that he was a stunt double in Premium Rush. And I actually just saw him recently. He's still, because of that film, he's still an active stunt double for movies.
Yeah.
And he's doing more things than just bike stuff, but he's just saw him recently. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I think Austin got involved somehow, and then Austin Horse, and then Kim, Kim Nonstop. She's got a full career from it. They people had the opportunity to, work on the film, and they wound up clocking enough hours to get into SAG. And so Tom was a stunt double, and then that wound up, opening avenues for him to, take advantage of the opportunity and, get a career from it. So lots of people, sort of prospered from it.
Super cool for something like that to come together. So I think we went over a lot of the shop and kind of the New York scene before I was here. Let's go to the basic question. So when people want to know when you started riding, this is like the most basic question to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. Should we take it all the way back?
All the way back.
All right.
When did you first start riding, and then when did you seriously start riding?
Yeah, I mean, I was like an '80s kid, so I've got that token, inspiration from the movie Rad, kind of thing. I picked up a BMX bike then, and then saw the movie Rad, and just blew my mind and kind of changed my life. And first BMX bike was a Mongoose Expert, and that was at the time when Tioga Comp 3s and Amy Grips were the same lime color, and where everything was matching, and everything was like sort of flow panel number plates, and things were like really cool in that time,
bomber pads,
09, and all that kind of stuff. And so that was like a big inspiration for me. And then I started junior BMX racing as a kid, and I raced all the way through my teenage years. And I was I raced states and did nationals in BMX, and kind of had small sponsors from bike shops, and co-sponsorships from other companies like local manufacturers, and I really kind of got immersed in the scene, and so one thing kind of led to another, and I was always a bike racer, I then got into photography through BMX and started, shooting BMX. And, so I was like a teenager who was real inspired by, all the culture and everything around it. And then I wanted to pursue in photography. Came up to New York and went to School of Visual Arts for photography and had a career in photography. And then after school, I picked up a track bike. And
of course you did.
Yeah, that was happening. That was like I think about late 90s, early 2000s. And picked up a track bike and then a road bike, started racing again, and then really caught the bug like seriously then, and was, kind of hooked again to cycling. And then, I really started Affinity like on a whim in a way. I was looking to do another business, like to invest in a business, and I really knew like cycling and photography, and so I kind of just went for it. And then like cycling I started Affinity, and then in a way I kind of stopped racing for a while, and really only picked up the bike again to start racing. Like then I was just kind of like commuting, and I was always riding, but really took racing to where I am now, really after I transitioned into the brand. Gave me a little more time to begin to train seriously, and then that's when I started racing heavily on the track, and kind of went through that whole thing, so yeah, that's kind of like the quick synopsis, not so quick synopsis.
That's a common theme here is BMX racing as a background for many people.
Yeah.
I like to hear it. It's skateboarding and BMX racing.
That was like the culture then, that like, that whole, the 80s and the 90s in terms of like the whole boom of like,
Well, there was rollerblading too, and I'm nothing against people who rollerbladed. Not just, haven't had anyone talk to anyone yet on this interview show thing yet.
Yeah.
Who has rollerblading.
You got to hit up Shardy. Shardy's the rollerblader.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of people in track bikes and that came from rollerblading too. So I'm just recognizing the fact
there are others.
There was
it's mostly BMX and skating.
BMX, skateboarding, and rollerblading, and then maybe soap shoes.
Yeah, man. I mean, the culture for BMX was massive, and for me, I mean, it was like my life. That was everything, and even like photography, the only real reason I got into photography was I broke my ankle like really bad when I was a teenager, like 15, and that's right when you turn
racing your bike?
Racing BMX. I was at like a practice, and like I slipped a pedal on this like big double, and really broke my ankle real bad, and so I was like out. And, I really got into photography then, and had a dark room in my garage, and, really kind of like got into it then. And it was all still shooting like BMX pretty much at the time. But, that everything involved BMX, and that was life sort of,
Yeah. I used to, get all the BMX pluses, and just, it's interesting to see the cover photos from BMX Plus those years compared to like later years, because I didn't know about like what people think of BMX now to what I was around then. It was dirt jumps and racing. That was it.
Yeah.
Like very little street. I didn't see never saw people hitting street stuff. I got out of the scene at that time, so it was always like you ride your BMX bike on the dirt.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was pretty much almost racing at the time. It transitioned into the 90s. It kind of transitioned into dirt jumping, but it was, I mean, and that's maybe why I'm kind of like a racer, because that's kind of like what I grew up in. And yeah, I mean, I'm not really a street like BMXer because I just never did that, I got into dirt jumping, like later, and that was definitely into the mid to late 90s, and that's when that became like more popular. And I guess because racing was serious, and then for fun we would like
dork around and go hit the jumps.
Yeah, and then that became a whole discipline. And now it's even there's like a world championships now. Did you see that?
Yeah.
There's
now
it's like totally legit.
Everybody can ride street and hit dirt jumps.
Yeah, no, I don't. That doesn't make sense to me, but I totally get that.
Dirt jumps on street bikes with 4 pegs.
Yeah. And that's rad, man. That's super cool. That the way that it's all transitioned, and I think that's also why there's like such a big influence for, you know, that kind of culture, the BMX like flair in track bikes and in like this kind of like fixie scene or whatever, you know, and even fixed gear freestyle, a lot of those guys, you know, transition or you know, BMXers or whatever. And even in racing, you got like track racers who came from BMX or Tour de France guys, like sprinters. Like a lot of the big sprinters were BMXers or started off in BMX. So, you know, it definitely has a huge influence.
Yeah, it's been around. It's always going to influence, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So you talked about track racing. I'd love for you to explain the progress from like the first time you rode seriously, like racing from a Cat 5 on a track to like being a Masters. Wait, what's your national title that you have?
Yeah, so I was the 2018 Team Pursuit Masters National Champion in the 35-44 age category.
There we go. See, this is a national champion right here.
I suppose so.
So yeah, I would just like to hear like, you know, explain how long it took that journey to get to that. That's like, you know, probably a high point in your track racing career, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And like, you know, how demanding it was, you know, like how did the fun go away? Like, you know,
sure. Yeah. That's a big story too.
Job?
It is a job. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, I think the transition happened, you know, it took a bunch of years. And I mean, really to get serious, it takes a while, you know, and I think your body has to develop and you have to develop and, you know, stuff like that takes time. You know, again, I when the shop closed, I started riding again and then kind of transitioned into training. And, you know, I really began to take it seriously about 3 or 4 years ago, to where I was, you know, I just, you know, started riding a ton and training and then, you know, through Affinity and sponsoring other racers, I've gotten to know a lot of like coaches and, you know, the whole scene at T-Town. And, you know, a really good friend of mine is Gil Hatton, who's, you know, a tremendous bike racer and coach. And, you know, he's probably one of the most legendary American track racers, you know, in history. You know, he's an American track racer who went to race the Kirin in Japan and had an incredible career as a track racer, and then went on to coach Marty Nothstein to gold. And, you know, so he's then trained other Affinity racers. And, you know, I kind of one day called him up and said, you know, hey, I want to take this seriously. And, you know, I don't think he took me seriously in the beginning. He was like, yeah, sure. I think it was more of a favor that, you know, than him, because he doesn't take on racers like that. You know, coaches at that level don't really just take on anybody, you know. So in a way, it's you kind of have to prove yourself, you know. And I think I'll be honest, in a way, like since I knew him and had such a good relationship, is probably the only reason he really took me on. And I think at the same time, he didn't really know that I could race, you know, that like I had been a racer for life, and that I knew that if I really had a program and took it seriously, I could get somewhere. So I started training with Gil, and then he gave me a goal, and he was like, well, you know, he said, you need a goal. I was like, all right, well, I want to race. I want to get to T-Town. One of my goals was to try to race with some of the sponsored racers that I had raced with, or sponsored. So the Cost brothers, I wanted to do a Madison, and I still haven't done that. So Christian, we still got to do that. The idea was that I wanted to get fast enough to race in the pro ranks, like at, you know, on the Friday nights, and, you know, kind of like get out there and swing it with like the pros. Yeah. So he was like, okay, yeah, no. He's like, you're going to go to nationals, you know? And I was like, I thought that was crazy. I thought that was a crazy idea. And he said, no, you're going to go to nationals. We're going to train you. You're going to go to nationals. So I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, okay. That just seemed wild to me at the time. And so, you know, he wrote me a program that was really hardcore, like really hardcore. And I mean, you know, it wasn't the actual training was hardcore. It wasn't the time. He had me at about 10 to 12 hours a week, which is an hour and a half or so a day, 7 days a week, always on. Yeah, that just kind of like kicked in. And then, you know, we had, you know, I came back. One of my first races back before I started training, I'll shout out Jesse Schottland, who I now sponsor. I went out one day, and I actually happened to only have like a small casino like built up or something. So I was on the wrong size track bike, and I just kind of went out for kicks. And that at the time it was fun. That was fun. It was still fun then. And then one thing led to another. At the end of that main season, I went to nationals, Masters Track Nationals, and I think I only did 2 races. I think I only did the scratch race and the points race, and I got a 4th and a 5th. And the points race was like murderous. It was like a 100-lap points race, and I managed to get 5th. And that was one of the most hardcore races I had ever done. And I think I finished the final sprint. I think I got a 2nd in the final sprint. So I finished strong, and that was an eye opener. So that was kind of the beginning. I was like, wow, I could do this. And then then the training got more and more intense, and then 2018 was a pivotal year. I went to nationals and won the team pursuit, and that then I went on that year to go to Masters Worlds. So just a year ago, and I got what did I get? I got 6th or 7th in the scratch race. We got, I think, 5th or 6th in team pursuit, which was cool. That was a feather. So Worlds was in LA, so it was achievable to go to Track Worlds, Masters Track Worlds. And it was kind of a feather in the cap because I got to wear my national champions, my Stars and Stripes. And so, the idea of going to a Track World Championships and Stars and Stripes was like totally mental. So it's kind of a feather in the cap, and also a buffer to try to, not a buffer, but like a gauge to see. All right, well, I'm in the best form I've ever been in. Let's go to World Championships and see how you can do. And I'm definitely going to go back. I had a bit of a hiccup this year with a bit of a crash. But yeah, it's been a blast, and it is a part-time job. I mean, it really is at that level, and I did lose, some of the fun from it. But actually after this crash, which I guess we'll get into, but I've got a different perspective, and it's about changing it up, I think, people get into bikes, and then it's fun, and then maybe you get competitive, and then you burn out, and then you try something else, and it gets fun. And I think it's all, at the end of the day, you love your bike and you love to ride it or race it or do whatever. And I think it's about being healthy and then also loving what you do.
Yeah. So tell us about the crash.
Yeah, the crash. We didn't chat about that, but the crash. Yeah, I mean, it's funny too, because that was it's weird. It became like a pivotal point. I was on my way to go to nationals, and then I raced. So I was racing this year. I did the UCI races at T-Town, and a lot of the Friday nights, and I've got my Cat 2 upgrade, and so I race kind of with the pros at T-Town, and that's been a great experience. I get my butt kicked, and but I go out there and race with guys who are going to the Olympics, and last year was a big year because it was this year because it was on an Olympic year, and so here we are like racing with all the pros and stuff, and that was fun, and I learned a lot about myself, and I got really fit, and then one of my teammates, Evan Thompson, he was doing he's the para track tandem national champion. So he's he got into tandem racing and was the national champion, and hit me up and was like, hey, you want to do tandemonium? So, I'm like, he coerced me to do it. He's the national champion. And so I also sponsor.
Just want to put this out there. There's nothing more sketchy looking from an outsider's perspective than watching 2 grown-ass athletes on a tandem bike.
Yeah.
Smashing. I don't know how fast. Really fast.
It's fast, yeah. I mean, it's like a roller coaster. I mean, it's terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time. It's mental. And you got to see the crash video. The crash video is on our Instagram page, and it's like totally mental.
It's crazy looking.
Yeah. So, and we also, then I also sponsor Tom Rotheram and Matt Sprint, and we were kind of jockeying, and we engaged in the sprint, and unfortunately, the front chain, I forgot what it's called now, but it snapped, and we were engaging in the sprint. Fortunately, we weren't going like full speed, but the chain snapped and wound up wrapping into the front wheel, which was like a Karima 4-spoke. And then we started going down track. We hit like the back disc wheel of our our opponents, who was my teammate and the world champion in that discipline.
Yeah.
And we went down really hard. And I was not the pilot. I was a stoker, because Evan is used to riding. He should be snapped, and we were engaging a stoker because he's like the bigger, heavier, sprinter guy. But he rides. He's the pilot because he's a para rider. And we went down, it seized the front wheel, then the fork snapped off the bike. So our tandem track bike became Affinity Cycles. And we went down pretty hard. There's a video. The video's on our Instagram page, and it was pretty hardcore. So I had a concussion and fractures, and it was pretty bad, and I thought I was kind of like getting okay, and then it turned out a few weeks in, I wound up getting vertigo, and it just stopped me in my tracks, for about a month or two almost, and back training, and then it was just a big perspective kind of thing. I had been going real hard for 4 years and getting fast and having fun and doing great things, and then I realized, wow, like this whole, existence is fragile, but, also like as a whole, like, it was a job pretty much. And, so I'm back training, but, things are a little more casual, and my recovery days, I actually ride without a kit on. I spin laps. Like in clothes or shorts, and that was weird. I went on a bike ride with a friend, and I realized I was spinning laps in the park, and I realized I couldn't remember the last time that I had been in the park on a bicycle in like shorts and not a kit. And so like, it was just like weird perspectives.
So
and
Bay
I guess
Area
the crash, nor do I like have fun on a bicycle. You're trying to get me like, Terry's been trying to get me to like go like out of the city, like get me on like some dirt, or
trying to get him off the road, and just so he can try different style of bike.
Yeah.
And just get out there away from the normal road and track kind of riding.
Yeah, it's funny, the first time we like
contrast.
Inadvertently, the first time, I mean, we didn't really hang, we hung a little bit, but when we did, what's it called? Trimble's Neversink.
Oh yeah.
And that was fun. I mean, for me, was a huge, like, that totally like helped the burnout at the time, because that was just before.
So Neversink is a race thrown by the same guy who, Dave Trimble, who threw all the Red Hook crits. He also did these road races. And they're gnarly climbing, and it's on road and off road, and it's all upstate New York. And that day it actually rained for the first like hour or two. So, and I thought it was gonna be freezing, so I wore too many clothes. And
man,
it was fun. And then
that was great.
Jason, being the track bike racing person that he is, rode on tubular tires, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I got sunk. I didn't finish, but
he flatted out.
I flatted out. I thought, well, and
fix the tubular.
I couldn't fit, and I couldn't get a wheel, and I thought at the time, I ride tubulars. I'm a track guy, and so I pretty much roll tubulars. And I had a pair of Zips, that I think they had 25C tires, and I have sealant in them, and so I figured that was the best option, and turns out it wasn't, But I wound up riding on that. It was a rear flat. I wound up riding like over an hour or more. I was trying to finish on a flat.
So majority, I guess, that ride was mixed terrain. I would say it was like 70 road, 30 dirt.
It was
wasn't
hardcore,
that
man.
much dirt, but the dirt sections that were there were some of them. Towards the end, there was a nice little climb that was kind of really put people in their place. That's where I caught a lot of people, actually.
The climbs that were nuts. That was a big eye opener for me. I mean, because I get stuck in this like training mode or just track racing mode, and it was so much fun doing that. And I can see why gravel and adventure riding is so popular, because it's it's good to get out there and mix it up, and no matter how.
See new things, and there's less cars, which is really nice.
Less cars. It's fun too. Like, no matter how hardcore you want to be about racing, like you have to laugh at yourself, because eventually you're gonna there's boulders and things, and you can't be like perfect all the time. You got to just laugh it off and have fun and get gritty and
stay loose.
Stay loose and try not to kill yourself or crash. I remember going down one of the descents and was like, I grabbed my brakes and there was no brakes, and there were boulders, and I just like held on and like screamed, Oh, right then too, Britley Bowman, she flew by me. She's like a big, cyclocross racer, and she's just rad. And we then rode. I was like, at the time, I was like, fuck yeah, Britley. She flew by me on the descent. It was like gravel and boulders and everything. It was really fun. Yeah, that was super fun. So you'll get me out there. And we've got some stuff in the works. We're making some new bikes and doing lots of cool things. So there'll be affinities who will. There's a good pivot.
Secret affinity drop in there.
A little bit. We got you on an affinity now, so you're.
Talk about anything coming out that's in the pipeline from Affinity. Now's your chance. Yeah. Before I open it up to questions from everyone who's watching.
Yeah, I mean, Affinity's we're doing tons of cool things, tons of fun projects. Affinity is now distributed by J&B importers in the USA, so any bike shop in America can pretty much be an Affinity dealer. Where go to your local bike shop and ask them to stock Affinity, or if you work at a bike shop, just tell them to order Affinity product via J&B. We're also distributed by Blue Lug in Japan, and we have other big select dealers worldwide. Check our Stockist page on the website. We just got a new website that launched, and we're doing a ton more soft goods and hard goods. Hats, and Terry's rocking one of the hats, and
hey.
We got Track of Dreams t-shirts, and we got Tark at this one. Tark of Dreams.
You guys made this. You made a gear chart too.
Yeah, we made a gear chart.
You made a really
That's
cool
fun.
video for it as well.
Made a fun video
here in this space. Actually,
the gear chart. The gear chart was a fun thing. That was an idea I had a long time ago, and was just. Having distribution now helps make more products. So we've got a ton of new product in the works. Our cranks and chain rings are coming, and we've got, we've got wrenches that are coming in January. We'll have toolboxes and new frames. There'll be some new our stainless steel road frames coming out, and then we've got a through axle disc, like an all road kind of bike coming.
Sick.
We may have some cool, exciting carbon fiber project that we're working on, and some other carbon fiber bits, and maybe some collaborative projects with some other people, and some new bikes, and maybe completes, and lots of new stuff. It's almost like a new lease on Affinity, because we're a pretty core company, and I really only like to make original product that fits a place in the market, and I feel like really from the beginning the Low Pro was that product. I feel like there was no sort of streetable pursuit bike, and I think the Low Pro kind of hit that mark. And then then we made the Casina, and so I really try to produce product that's original and that has a place in the market. And being a small company that's self-funded, I've always had to be careful how much I produce, and I can't always make all the new product that I want. But now, having the company being a bit bigger and streamlining the company and not having the bike shop anymore, I'm able to offer more product. And then now with distribution, that's been a big game changer. So look out for next year. We're gonna have a ton of new product, a whole lineup of product. It's been super cool, and lots of new fun things to come.
Just browsing through your website just reminded me, you made here it is right here. You did a collaboration with Hennessy, which is kind of cool. I think you should talk about that
major.
Because I've had a couple of bottles of Hennessy. Because there's some right there.
There's only one left now. It's half gone.
There's a couple of Hennessy bottles here in the studio. So
yeah, well, it also we'll talk about Hennessy, but also, so many people don't know that Terry and I kind of share a space.
This is where Affinity's.
This is the Affinity HQ. We're gonna say we don't say it that much, but
That's why
What-
there's
what
so
you
many
see
bikes
around you
around,
is-
and people always ask me like,
Where-
"Oh, what's that?
where-
Why do you have so many nice bikes?" But they never
Yeah, I
mention why all those bikes aren't my size.
Right.
They're not mine. Those aren't my
They're all
bikes.
mine.
Those are his bikes. It makes
They're Affinities.
It looks good for me though, right? It's good for the channel.
Yeah, I was watching the stream before. I was like, man, the background looks pretty cool. It looks good. It's nice. It's moody. Yeah. So we're kind of, we share space, which is cool. It's cool for me because this place is, this place is cool and it's fun, and I work out of here. But having Terry in here is rad, and he does awesome things. So I appreciate that he's doing cool things, and we're coming together and working on some stuff. And he's been mentioned in the interviews and stuff, and so I'm a big fan and supporter. But
Yeah, you came in, there's some mics in here, and you're like, what the hell's going on with
sweet
my
setup.
space?
I do bikes and you do video and bikes, but I have like toys and I'm all stoked about it. Terry's got these crazy cameras and things. It's also inspired me to shoot a little more. Like we did the glitch video. I call it the glitch video because my camera skills aren't really up to par, but he helped edit that. Terry edited the video. We did it's on the homepage, I think.
Is that on this page?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
I'll
if
pull
you,
it up.
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was the Felix English casino,
All right. Yeah.
frame,
We should talk about
and-
that one too. That's a cool project.
and Jason actually shot this one, and all I did was take his footage and edit it, but
He brought it to life. It
really doesn't work without the audio. But as you can see
Yeah.
how glitchy it is, it's it was a lot of he took a lot of photos and video, so I just made it feel more like he shot a bunch of photos and kind of
Yeah, it came out really
together.
good. He made it happen. He
um
brought it to life, I would
and
say.
that's Ben Falcon with the paint in the booth.
Yeah, at Horse Cycles, yeah. So what should we talk? Should we talk about
yeah.
that, or we talk about the major? Yeah, so that was a cool, fun project. I'm now sponsoring a rider called Felix English, an Irish rider called Felix English, who's just an awesome guy. And I was turned on to him through a couple of mutual friends, and Pete Taylor from Star Trek, and Owen Mullen, who's an Irish sprinter who's trained in the States and whatnot. And it's one of those things, like we've sponsored riders, and sometimes people ask me, like, how did you get to sponsor this person? We sponsor Amber Joseph and other pros, and we sponsored other 6-day racers. And I was just turned on to him, and he just happens to be a great fit. He's just an awesome guy, and he's an Irish Olympic hopeful. He's on the Irish national team, and he's doing World Cups, and he got contracted for the 6 days of London, and 6 days of Berlin he'll be doing in January. I just got word that he's doing Rotterdam. So he'll be doing Berlin, Rotterdam. There's Manchester, and then also the one in Australia, Brisbane. And so we decided to trick out some bikes for him to make him loud. And so we did the Irish flag, and it all came together really quickly. And he rocked the 6s in it. That bike glows like crazy. So yeah, look out for Felix. We've got some really exciting things going on with Felix. And it turns out I may sponsor his partner for Rotterdam as well. So we may have 2 bikes in the Rotterdam 6s as well. So
You're gonna do
Felix
the
is rad,
same
and
Irish.
I don't know. I've been thinking about it. I mean, it's funny because I love so that's a split paint. If you watch the video, you kind of see it. And so one side, the drive side, is orange with sort of white and green graphics, and then the non-drive side is green with orange and white graphics. So it kind of represents the flag, and the orange glows like like highlighter, and then the other side is a little more subtle. So I think we'll do the same thing. I think we'll rock it. And then his Derny bike is kind of more pro, your typical like black and white. So, you can see the graphics and everything, but people really love the bike, and he did a great job, and he's super fast. And he just won the scratch race at the round 2 of the World Cup. So he's flying, and hopefully he's on par to do the Olympics. And if he is, then we may have something special up our sleeves for the Tokyo Games.
Japan,
yeah.
2020.
That would be awesome. Stay tuned. Yeah.
I would love to be there.
Same.
Fly me out.
Yeah.
Fly us out.
Well, if our boy Felix gets in, I think we're there. Maybe, hopefully, possibly. So yeah, I mean, and that's like one of those things that, like we try to do fun projects, and that's like that, cost me an arm and a leg, but is like totally fun and supports racers, and that's like, I'm huge on that. And that goes back to like my BMX days, because like I was a junior racer that was sponsored by like bike shops. And, in a way, that's why also I held our shop like near and dear. And I think also that's why as a brand, I understand small bike shops and small business, and why we chose J&B to work with J&B. And I think that's why they chose us, because J&B, I remember I worked in bike shops as a kid, and I remember looking through the J&B catalog. And the J&B is kind of like I call J&B, I hope I'm not going to offend Mitch at J&B, but, QBP is the other big distributor. I call Q the white collar and J&B the blue collar, because Q kind of has the more luxury kind of exotic brands, and J&B has kind of, it's more of the parts and the, the nitty gritty, the bike shops, order like the parts they need and the regular kind of stuff. And Affinity is a perfect fit, because I've known J&B forever, and they're perfect for Affinity, and they treat us as their, kind of luxury brand or their upper tier brand. And it's given us an opportunity to grow, and they're investing in us. And, we know small business, and, the opportunities that were given to me as a kid with small shops and growing up in bike shops, and then having the opportunity to race for small companies and race for small shops and small brands, I now give to other racers. And then I also try to work with small shops and give them the same kind of opportunities. So it's fun to do these little projects and try to, support racers. And, then for me to race is a total thrill as well. So I get to like go to the racers, and I'm like geeking out. And then also I get some
and
like,
you get to be track dad.
Yeah, that's cool. That's true. Yeah. It's fun to see these guys, and these guys are now like rippers. I mean, like Felix English and Amber Joseph, and Tom Rotheram, he won Rider of the Year, and then Jesse Shotland, who's just fun, and we swing it around and kind of have fun, and race bikes and do cool stuff.
Sweet. We're looking forward to some dirt racing.
Some dirt ride, some adventure, and totally.
Like you have some new products, so you're gonna have to.
We got a lot of it. Yeah, it's a stainless. We got a stainless. I'll tell you that one. It's a stainless through axle all road bike that's coming soon, and that's gonna be. We also may have another bike, like
that sounds
working
sweet.
on something else that's super cool too.
That sounds sweet.
Yeah, well, and also like we get approached by other companies to do projects, and we've had the, really great opportunity to, we've done like a Wu-Tang bike, and, I'm working with Raekwon now to maybe do some more stuff. And we just did a new bike for him for his 611 factory pop-up shop. It's I got to know Raekwon pretty well. And
you guys know Raekwon from Wu-Tang?
Raekwon, Wu-Tang.
Anybody?
Yeah. Next year's the 25th, I think the 20th or the 25th anniversary of the Only Built for Cuban Links album. So he's done that. It's called Purple Album, because his tape was purple, and that was like a big deal. So we made a fresh bike for him. And then recently we did the major track bike. We were approached by Hennessy to celebrate the history and the career of Major Taylor, probably the single greatest American track racer of all times. He was probably one of the biggest professional athletes at the time. He was huge. And Hennessy is doing the sort of ambassador program, and they approached us to be part of the project, and we honored Major Taylor by making the major track bike. And we did some other soft goods in limited edition, we made a really special track bike out of the Metropolitan. They basically wanted us to do like a modern twist on what Major Taylor would ride today. And so that became the Metropolitan. That bike is really nice. And so we did some like classic leather bits, and then CNC machine parts, and just really put together a really nice bike.
First time I think I saw the Affinity branded cranks on there.
Yeah, they're making a comeback. Yeah, that was a great opportunity to kind of bring them back. And they really wanted a special bike, and we they had a nice budget. Like sometimes when you do these projects, they don't get how the difference between a $599 bike and these bikes are $2,800, but the difference is incredible. And
it's got Thompson bits, and those
Yeah.
are Phil's.
They're full wood hubs.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
That's a good bike out of the box.
it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and they gave away all those bikes. We made like they gave away about 100 bikes, and
Wait, they gave them the way?
they gave away all those bikes. Yeah. And we had. It's funny. We ordered. I forgot how many. We ordered a couple hundred. I think a little less, and they had about 60 or 70 bikes, and then they wound up buying most of them. And more people wanted them. LeBron James got a bike. Nas got a bike.
What?
Yeah, like a lot of people got. ASAP got a bike. A lot of people.
Oh,
I'm like
all of the Hennessy like
ambassadors. Yeah, and then a ton of other people as well. So it was,
That's
I mean, that was
crazy.
cool. Yeah, and then we got to do soft goods, like a really sweet jersey and Hennessy water bottles, and yeah, so that was cool. That was a really great project and fun. You know, like it's, you know, we built them all in house, and you know, and brought on a bunch of people to help us do the builds. And you know, most people don't, you know, like Affinity's, we're really just a small business, you know, and you know, yeah, rider owned, and you know, even the people we work with or we hire, part-timers or freelancers, and you know, but I mean, it's a, you know, we're a small little company that just, you know, focuses on what we love, and you know, this project was definitely kind of like a really nice highlight of that, you know.
Yeah. Dude, this bike, this bike looks really good in person as well as these photos. I didn't notice how many. You shot all these photos yourself?
I did.
All
Yeah,
the photos
yeah.
on the site look really good. I mean,
Thanks,
you
yeah.
just did a new website. I'm gonna stop
Thanks, yeah.
plugging Affinity. Really I just haven't been here,
Sorry.
and I guess you were busy updating it, because I saw
Yeah,
that there's
yeah.
some
I'm trying to keep it updated now
English stuff
more
on
often.
there
Yeah.
that's like,
Thanks. Yeah. No, I've been updating it like weekly. I'll
Yeah.
like change the main page, and actually we're gonna do a post. Like, now people have been asking for more pictures of the Felix English bike, and
Yeah.
so I'm gonna put that our blog's called Happenings, and so, you know, for Affinity, those are like happenings. Like, we do whatever. You know, I'm not just calling it a blog post. It's like something that we did that's kind of like a happening, and so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna post more pictures on the site, and then, you know, let everybody know to tune into the site. So yeah, no one goes to websites anymore, but I mean, you know, you gotta like buy on the website. People don't even do that, like through
Yeah.
Insta. But you know, I mean, we try to keep it as current as we can, and then also show our story and, you know, how we, you know, what we do and what we like to do and everything else. So try to keep it current.
Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I
thank
want
you.
to take this time to open this up to the
Cool.
the chat, and I saw a couple names in the chat while we were talking. Just want to shout out Kelsey's up in the chat, or she was. She was saying thank you for keeping. She's on her bike working today, Kelsey Lee.
Oh, cool. What's up,
And
Kelsey?
Yeah, and she just said, you know, thanks for keeping the day making the day not boring.
All right,
while
oh, that's
she's,
good.
On standby, you
I'm
know?
glad I'm not boring to everybody or some people.
Yeah, and then Lucas Brunel just jumped in here.
Yeah,
And
Lucas, what's up, man?
And he just said, you know, he figured that Ferg probably had one of the bikes.
Yeah. It's funny because he did another bike project shortly after, but
Yeah,
it was
with
his
Redline.
birthday or something. Hennessy gave him a bike. I tried to get
Cool.
pictures of all the like influencers and stuff, but everybody shot me down.
Yeah.
I couldn't really get that.
LeBron
I
didn't
tried.
send a photo?
No, I tried to build it. I tried to pitch this whole custom thing because I
Yeah.
was like,
He needs
I told
a custom
them,
bike. He's
that's
too
what I
big for
said.
any of the
They
bikes
they
to
weren't
give
about
him.
it. They were like, yeah, no thanks. We just want to give him a bike.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I tried.
Yeah, so those of you out there in the chat have any questions for Jason about racing, the Affinity brand, or anything at all, go ahead and drop them in there. George Loves Dirt. I know who this guy is. I think you guys have a history. Anyways, I'll bring
yeah?
that up offline.
Okay.
But George wants to know what the deal is with the fillet braised low pro.
Oh, the fillet braised.
Yeah. That, that Soho
Fillet.
rides. Fillet.
The fillet. That was a bit of a fillet. That was a rare
Holy
cut.
shit. What is up with that? I mean, I know what's up with that. But
Yeah, that was our. We did the Philip raised. That was the 10th anniversary bike, limited edition. That was kind of a one-time run, and they sold out really fast. And you know, we like doing things in limited edition. So that was kind of a one-time offering.
Yep.
And maybe we'll do something Philip raised in the future, but definitely not the same. So that was a one-time product, and we offered them. Our distributor Blue Lug bought a bunch, and we had a bunch, and that was that. They're fun bikes.
Man, I remember when they came. It was like a year or two ago when I saw them. I like wrote a comment. I was like, "Holy shit, those are beautiful."
I mean, but thanks. Yeah. At the time too, it was one of those things where, cost-wise, it doesn't make sense for bicycle manufacturers to make a Philip raised bike. That's usually like a hand-built kind of thing, and so I wanted to. That was another. It was our 10th anniversary. I wanted to make something special, and so I figured, hey, let's make a Philip raised bike. I thought that would be cool, and that's why it's raw, and it just kind of highlights the brazing, and so I thought that was cool. Actually, I wound up taking a bit of a hit on the profit, because they cost a ton more to manufacture, because it's just a lot more manual labor. But I figured whatever, like there'll be a fun offering, and I've always wanted it. So many bikes are Philip raised and very few are raw, so I thought it would be cool to do it. Initially the factory didn't want to do it, and that was because they knew they were going to rust, and I think maybe they begin to rust, and the mash frames are also like the work frame is raw, and that's a cool look, and so I just had them like put extra clear coat on them so they could so it could really highlight the brazing. I thought that was a cool, aspect of it. So
yeah,
it was
it's
fun.
a beautiful bike.
Yeah, thanks.
I apologize. I didn't say, I forgot Street Fighter's also here. What up, Street Fighter?
What up, Street Fighter?
Also, Eric Otto's here. He's saying he ain't got no questions, but he's saying that you're super inspiring, Jason.
Oh,
so
thanks, man.
cool.
Yeah, I watched the interview a couple of days ago too. I tuned in and
I think, have you guys
got
met?
up to speed. I don't
You
think
and
so.
Eric?
I don't think so.
You guys should connect.
Yeah,
We'll do that.
for sure.
Max wants a review of the studio.
There's, I guess we could do
we can't do that right now, but that's a good. I'll write that down. Review the studio.
Sure. We're Terry and I have been talking about doing a hotline too, so that's going to come up next for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
We
said we were going to say that. Yeah. Oh, I should have said that.
No,
all right.
Yeah, we're doing a hotline because Jason has a particular way of riding here sometimes to the studio, and I'm like, what the? So yeah, you guys will see what I'm talking about with that, because I'll definitely highlight his particular style of riding his racing bike here.
Terry always talking. I mean, like Terry's always doing cool shit, and he's doing his hotlines, and so I'm like, I want to do a hotline, and yeah, it should be fun. It'll be cool.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. Let's see.
And yeah, we could do the shop. Shop's cool. Shop's fun.
Yeah, it's a good looking space. Would like to hear some more insights on Premium Rush. I mean, do you have any particular questions on that?
I mean, Premium Rush was cool. It was, the one thing about Premium Rush I thought was, and chime in if you got a question about, a specific question about Premium Rush. But overall, I think Premium Rush was like stamped a time in the scene. Like we were talking about Peel Sessions, and, like when the movie came out, it really highlighted like the kind of like the peak at the time of the culture. And it was really rad that the production company wound up using like people in the scene as like extras, and they brought everybody into the fold and made everybody feel like that we could be part of the movie, and that really made it special. And then I think for me, it's funny, I'm glad you said this, because I did want to say that at the time when they asked us to do the movie, I wasn't sure whether it would be a good idea for Affinity to be involved or for Affinity to be the main character's bike, and it turned out so the main reason that I wanted to do it was because I, like, as a kid, and this sounds so cheesy, and like I don't want to sound like cocky or anything, but like I thought it was like the rad bike in Rad, was like, it was a Blue Max, but it was a Mongoose, and at the time when Premium Rush came around, I was like, the idea that the main character would be on an Affinity was like, I was like, holy shit, like the bike, like the movie and the bike that inspired me as a kid, like there's a possibility that Affinity could be that bike, and so for me, that was the only reason I did it, and
power move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just passion. I mean, at the time I actually thought that it could be a bad look, No, I was gonna mention that, and I didn't want to I haven't watched the full movie, and
everyone knows that the film.
That's why you haven't watched it. That's cool, man. Yeah.
I've seen parts of it, and like just watching the trailer, you know it's gonna be. Like,
Oh, it's like awful, but
yeah, it's not gonna be like.
Yeah,
nothing's ever how the scene really is. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
It's just Hollywood trying to
Oh my God.
to spoon feed the rest of the masses a piece of what it's like.
But that's also cool because it's inspiring, and it, you know, like people, it has inspired
it might have
people.
a bad
and,
look for the brand. That's what I was saying.
And I thought that
be
too.
Affiliated
Totally.
with it, but I don't think.
No, and I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, I think overall it was a good look and it was a good opportunity for us. It's funny. The one other bit about Premium Rush. So they invited us on to be consultants, and also Squid, shout out Squid, who was like one of the big consultants of the movie, and Cyclehawk, and we kind of came on as consultants, and and that's what was cool about the movie. But at one point they were asking us about gearing or whether, because Joseph Gordon-Levitt couldn't like
push the gear.
He couldn't push the gear. So Squid and I, like, they built this. Oh, this is a segue to a bigger story. I'll tell that story after, but. We were talking about gearing because he couldn't push a bigger gear. And so they were curious. They had to, we started with like a 49.16 or 15. And then went to 16, then went to 17, then went to 18 tooth cog.
49.17 is a great
like,
city gear.
It's winding out. And they were worried that it wouldn't look like he was on a big gear. And so they were like, they were like, what do you think? What do you think? And I was like, honestly, it doesn't matter. I was like, the movies, it doesn't matter. The movie's going to be great anyhow, even if it's like terrible, I'm like, even if it's terrible and it flops, I was like, the movie's still going to be great. It's going to be a classic. It's going to, it's going to mean something to people. And then like later on, like the prop master, like pulled me aside and she's like, yeah, you can't talk like that, about the movie. And I was like, what do you mean? And, she was like, yeah, you can't talk down on the movie. And I was like, I was just trying to reiterate the point that it's going to be a cult, like, movie either way, that at the time they like didn't want to hear that, the way I saw it was that it was going to be, either way the movie was going to be successful, and that it was going to be something like worthy, all cult movies like did terribly in the movie theater, but then
they're
they
right.
Like,
you can't say that on set.
You can't say that on set. Yeah, she was.
I
totally got yelled at.
Like, everyone's involved, and they're putting 30 to 90 days or however long production is.
Yeah, maybe it was a mistake, but I was
like
just being me, I was like, whatever, the movie's gonna suck, but it's gonna be great. Yeah.
Let me segue on to, let's see. Patrick wants to know. He wants to know, are you guys gonna make a fixed gear freestyle bike? First, I would think, did you ever? I know you did.
Yeah.
So go ahead and talk about that, and then. Are you going to make one in the future?
Yeah, so we made the Cyclone, which was a really great bike, and we are going to bring back the Cyclone, and it'll be a bit of an iteration. I think it's going to be a cross between like maybe a fixed gear freestyle bike and like a track lacrosse type bike, and so I'm actually working on that now to. Bring it back. It's going to be a bit of like a heavy duty kind of bike. And I think always the Cyclone was built to be like a fixed gear freestyle bike, but also, a really streetable kind of bike, and a bike that you could do a lot with. So the new version will be that also. So yeah, I would say definitely.
I have that Cyclone fork on my track lacrosse bike.
That's funny. I've got a box of those forks, and I was thinking of like selling them because, like I people kind of need those forks. And so. Yeah, maybe I'll toss them on the site and blow them
out. Are there any limited frames coming out? And like any special frames, I guess? And then are there any retailers in Europe? Do you have any Europe distribution?
So to answer the first part of the question, we do have limiteds coming out very soon. We have, I can't talk about them too much, but we've got limited edition bikes, I'll say, that span, well, right now Blue Lug has limited edition bikes that are on pre-order right now, so you can go to bluelug.com. They ship worldwide also. The Japanese only versions have front and rear brake holes, so you can get a Low Pro with
it also has internal
cable routing.
I have that's the one that I ride for.
Yeah.
Little shameless plug.
So
but it looks good if you run brakes.
Yeah. So Blue Lug has limited editions right now. In spring, we have new Casinas coming that will have tapered head tubes and a new fork and shorter head tubes, so there'll be more mass and it's a little more racier. So that's coming in spring. The road bike is coming in the spring, and then we're working on some other bikes that will definitely be limited
Is
edition.
the road bike? What's the brakes on that thing?
Yeah, so the road bike is rim brake. We put it out there. I know, yeah. The people spoke. The people had spoken. It was 50-50. We put that on stories, and it came back like, at 50-50. People wanted rim brake and through axle disc. So we decided. So the stainless tapered. It's going to be stainless tapered T47, really special bike and affordable frame sets and completes. And so that will be nice, a nice new addition. And then we're working on the through axle disc stainless bike. We are doing should I say it? We're doing a through axle disc Casina road bike that's coming.
That's
in the pipeline.
Super interesting.
That's going to be a fun bike and a special bike. And then we got another lineup of bikes that are going to be at a bit of a higher price point, and will be ultra rare. But I can't really talk about that too much just yet.
Secrets.
So I hope and then yeah, other components and stuff. But I don't know if that answered the question. But yeah, lots of limiteds.
Totally.
And then also, the thing about our stuff is that even if it's a production run, we do one colorway and then we change it up. So we try to offer our customers something that's limited edition, even if it's our production bike. So we change the colors up every batch, and we try to give you something that next batch won't be the same as the one before it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just spaced out there. I was trying to see the next question here. I got caught on this guy saying that Premium Rush got him into riding fixed gear.
That's cool, man. I love hearing that. That's cool.
And then someone else is saying that Matt Caframa got them into riding. That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Deja Vu wants to know, steel or aluminum, since you do offer both.
I would say both. I mean, depending on maybe the purpose of why you're riding. I love aluminum bikes. I mean, some people don't like the feel, or that they say there's a lot of vibration. For me, I don't mind it, or I think nowadays aluminum is the composite that we use 7005 aluminum, and with a carbon fork, I think it's rigid and rides great, and I really like that. On the daily, right now I'm riding one of my Anthems. That's like the daily rider, and I'm training on that right now. And then I ride a Casina track bike. So, I think I love both. I think both are great. And you definitely, they didn't mention carbon fiber, or titanium. I mean, carbon is great, but I think also, carbon's got its drawbacks. And I think a lot of people these days are riding more steel or aluminum because they want a bike that's going to last a long time, and sometimes carbon fiber doesn't do that.
Yeah, that's my major beef with carbon, is that you're buying pretty much a disposable bike.
Definitely, yeah.
Like when I buy other bikes, like my bike before my Low Pro that I would film and ride around every day, I had that bike for 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not going to have... or very few carbon bikes you're going to ride for 11 years. And that bike also traveled with me. Like, I would be terrified to travel with a carbon bike.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll be honest, aluminum can kind of be the same way. I mean, we one thing I love about our bikes is that the quality of manufacturing is really, really high. And I'm not just saying that to be proud of it. I mean, it's actually true. And we pay a little more for that, and we've got great relationships with our factories, but it's awesome to see, like on Fixed Gear NYC or the buying selling pages or the forums on Facebook and whatnot, there's a whole aftermarket for Affinity product. And some people are able to sell original Low Pros, like OG low pros for basically what they paid for them. And that, like, I find that, the bikes like the Cannondales or, those like few bikes out there that like retain value over the years. I think as a bicycle brand, to have a bike that has a, like, that has an afterlife and like a following for an afterlife, that means you've made a successful product, and people are, people are swiping up low pros like online and getting good money for them. And I think that's a, that means, that it's a great steel product. I mean, you definitely don't see that as much with the Casinas, and they do get dinged up. The top tube, can be a little softer. We tried to fix that. We used less butting in the top tube. So, they definitely can get banged around more. And so they don't dent as much. But, traveling with one, they can kind of get nicked up or dented up. But I mean, we've overcome that. But I would say longevity wise, I think steel is going to be, you're going to win that race. But, once you start getting more serious track racing, I think you kind of have to go more aero. That's why we went with the Anthem, because the Anthem was like a great mix of like Casina geometry, integrated mast with an NV fork, and tapered with true temper, like nice exotic tubing. And so we looked to find like a nice balance of that. And, I think the stainless bikes are going to be that also. So, yeah.
George Loves Dirt is asking a question that has been answered, but he wants to know, will there ever be a carbon or tie Affinity?
Yes. There will be. There might not be a tie one. I've been scratching my head about that. I mean, chime in, let me know if you want a tie Affinity. I don't know.
Tie's complicated.
Tie's complicated. I don't see the, we could make a stainless, I could make a stainless bike that's as light as tie, and that would feel, in my opinion, better than tie. I think tie is kind of pingy and doesn't have the ride quality of steel. So the way that I see it, I think the stainless bike is a perfect, middle ground between tie and steel, and carbon fiber definitely. Can't talk too much about that just yet, but yeah, carbon fiber is going to be around the bend.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for the questions.
Thank you.
Gonna shut down the Q&A from the chat here for a sec to let Jason kind of wrap things up and tell us what you have in store. We heard about Affinity's upbringings and kind of where you are currently. Like, what do you have planned for the future, 2020? That sounds weird. 2020, 2020.
And into
2020 sounds much better.
2020.
But, future plans, and then, anything you want to plug, social accounts, or anyone
Cool.
you want to thank,
Yeah.
this is a good time to
Well,
do
thank
it.
you, Terry. I appreciate you doing this, and I think what you're doing and is important. I think it's important. We spoke about peel sessions in it, so I think it's important to keep the culture going and also to push it forward. So, people subscribing and tuning into you, I think all that stuff's really important. And, I'm super grateful for, our followers and our community and, sort of the diehard Affinity, fans, or, even if you don't like Affinity and you're into track bikes, I'm kind of grateful for that. So I think it's important to, thank your community. And, I'm grateful for it. And, for Affinity also, I think that we came in at the right time, and I also think that's why we're kind of part of the thread of the culture, because that thing kind of happened, and and now we're focusing on the future and making new products. So you'll see a lot of new product coming out into 2020. Hopefully that's that the community's interested in. And then look out for some cool holiday offerings that we're going to have out in the upcoming couple of weeks.